Well, you're listening to the Lord and Richard Show, and I'm Colin Richards, Denver's Biblical Investment Advisor. And in this segment of the show, we're talking about how now to apply the teaching of our Lord in Luke chapter 12 about eternal investing. And we're, of course, doing that because we're in a series on biblical stewardship investing. And we're talking about ways that we can take what our Lord has taught us directly in the Gospels and apply that. So here's a principle that I want to talk about. Number one, give wisely. Give wisely. And we'll dedicate our time today to this important discussion. One of the things that most of my clients are concerned about is runaway government spending. The fact that our government seems to have really no systems to control the excessive spending of the past couple of years and no real plan to stop doing it. Back in the beginning of the pandemic-related financial crisis that we experienced, Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin said, well, in different times, we'll worry about the deficit. This isn't the time to worry about it. And that was, of course, a Republican administration. Now we have a Democratic administration. Really, there is bipartisan support for continued uncontained, uncontrolled spending by our government. So what does that mean? How does that affect us in daily life? Well, the truth is that if we don't pay taxes now, we are going to eventually, in order to cover the bill we're raking up. Okay, if you went home and spent credit cards like there was no tomorrow and didn't worry about it and didn't pay your payments, eventually that would come home to roost. The United States enjoys a sterling credit rating around the world. But there will eventually come a time when the world feels that enough is enough. We haven't hit that time, as Treasury Secretary Mnuchin said, but it's going to happen. And either we're going to get proactive about it or we're going to deal with it in crisis mode. Either way, taxes are going to be required. Revenue is going to be required. Because the only other alternative is going to be cuts in spending. And you realize that the government has redefined the word cut in spending to refer to a decrease in the normal amount of increase in spending. A decrease in the normal amount of increase in spending. So you and I would say, well, we're going to cut our budget, we're going to reduce our spending by 10%. No. That's not a cut from the government's perspective. When the government talks about a cut, they say, well, every year we've been increasing our spending by, let's say, 10%. So this year we're going to only increase by 5%. That's a cut. Oh, weeping and wailing in Washington because somebody's budget got, quote, cut. That is a clear indication that we're not going to see a solution on the reduction of expenses side. We might see a reduction in increases, but we're not going to see a true cut. So what's going to have to happen? The government is going to go after additional revenue sources. We might not see those in the next year. We really expected that by now we would have seen them. We would have expected that by now we would have had an increase in everybody's tax brackets. We would have had an increase in some of the easier taxes out there. We call them stealth taxes. So things like increasing the retirement age for Social Security, decreasing the cost of living adjustment for Social Security, increasing Medicare premiums, and so forth. Well, there's been a little tinkering, but we haven't had anything major in a while. So that is certainly an option. Plus, the government is always looking for ways to just sneak other forms of taxes under the radar. How about this? Your Social Security check, well, you're still going to get it, but what we're going to do is tax more of it. See, right now, 50% of your Social Security or 85% max of your Social Security check is taxed. Some people, zero. The government's going to figure out ways to close, not loopholes, those gaps in potential revenue. A loophole is something that the government forgot in writing out the law. The current tax strategies that we take advantage of with our clients are not loopholes. They were actually written into law and designed for people to take advantage of them. So how does this apply to giving? Well, when it comes to giving, we want to avoid giving excess money to the government. And you can give in some really creative ways so that the government doesn't get it, and instead it does good, like we've talked about in other segments. It does work for the kingdom. It has eternal value. So first of all, you can give away money to people, could be your children or others, at the rate of $15,000 a year. Okay, and the government's not going to tax that gift. Now, you don't get a deduction for it, but it sure is nicer for that to land in somebody else's hands than to just sit somewhere where it's going to be taxed again. In addition, you can do what's called the lifetime gift and estate tax exemption. One of the neat things is that over the course of your lifetime, if you give away more than $15,000 a year per person, you still have an exemption above that, up to $11.7 million per person. So if you're a couple, that gets to be a really big number, over $22 million, over $23 million that you can give away, and it's not subject to estate taxes. That's a big one. Prior to this current high-level opportunity, $11.7 million, it was $5.49 million. And above that, you would pay 40% plus in estate taxes. We're not here talking about your ordinary income taxes, the normal things that the IRS collects from your IRA and 401k and 403b and so forth. We're just talking about a special tax for money you leave behind. Well, after 2025, this big exemption is going to expire, and it's going to drop back down automatically without anybody doing anything to $5.49 million. And then if you have an estate larger than that, anything in your estate, then it's going to be subject to that onerous estate tax. So one way you can lock in your lifetime gift and estate tax exemption is to do your gifting now, before the expiration of the credit. It's called a unified credit, gifting as well as estate tax. It's an exemption. You can give this away, and the government doesn't come after it with their estate taxes and gift taxes. So that's one way that we can be setting aside money, giving it away to people. You can also use special vehicles such as certain types of trusts and certain types of investment tools inside of the trust to build up potentially very large dollars that would pass on to the next generation that would not be taxed. One such trust, we call it an irrevocable life insurance trust. Irrevocable because you can't change it. Okay, so it's considered truly a giveaway. You can, if you're a couple, you can have your spouse does the gifting, and then you can be the trustee so that you have some control over that, and then it can be in the name of your children, for example. There's just so many strategies, we can't even get into them all today. But here's the principle to remember. Avoid giving excess money to the government by doing some giving of your own. Avoid giving excess money to the government by doing some giving of your own. Well, this is a critical principle, and these gifting strategies are critical to not overpaying your fair share of taxes. And we would be delighted to talk to you about this and any other subject related to your personal financial independence, because that's what we're doing every single day. We're helping people just like you achieve and maintain financial independence so you can retire without worry, you can live your lifestyle without worry, and you can do amazing things for God. I'd love to talk to you. My team and I would love to talk to you. We're meeting with people every single day. So this is Colin Richards. I'm Denver's Biblical Investment Advisor, and I would love to talk to you about how you can take control of your financial future.